All right, welcome in. Week 16 starts with a Chargers comeback win, and LA pretty much locks up a playoff spot by beating the Broncos 34-27, sweeping the season series, and it looks like Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert are going to find themselves playing some meaningful January football in a few weeks. This is First and Pod. My name's Andrew Fillipponi. His name is Patrick Peterson. You should know him if you're an NFL fan with half a brain. He's a three-time All-Pro and multi-time Pro Bowler, one of the great corners and special teams players of all time. And we've got our guy Spencer Ray back here producing. Really simple message to start every show. Subscribe, rate, review, download the podcast, subscribe to it. Don't just listen. Make sure it shows up in your feed. That way we get credit. Ratings and reviews also put us on the radar of people. And the whole point of this podcast is to break down every game. We start with Thursday Night Football, and then we'll preview every game on the NFL schedule this week between now and the end of the show. Pat, great to have you back. I want to start by saying I think this was Justin Herbert's best game of his career. I think this is the win of his career. He's never won a playoff game. They were down 11 points twice in this game. And the touchdown pass he had to Davis in the second half is on the list of best throws by a quarterback this season. And he orchestrated a win against the team that came in with probably the hottest defense or one of the hottest defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, this was a very great win by Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh.
Not just great. You are going very great on this one. Let's go.
Yeah, with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh against the Denver Broncos, because if you look at this game for about 3 quarters and a half or so, you would have said that Denver Broncos had this game wrapped up the way the offense was playing. Bo Nix was, and Sean Payton was calling a hell of a game as far as the Chargers defense was on their heel for the most part the entire game because Bo Nix was completing the slip screens, he was completing the deep over routes. The running game was really solid throughout that game. And I don't know what happened. About 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that's when the Chargers seemed to turn it on with Gus Edwards starting to really get the charge going on the run on the ground, really opening up those passing lanes for Justin Herbert as the game went on, started to move on in the fourth quarter. So this was a great win by the Chargers. This showed some grit by Justin Herbert. Showed that not only that this is their quarterback, but this is a guy that they can win with. These guys still, they kept to they stuck to the script far as continue to run the ball, getting off the field on defense, and that was something that really kick-started this awesome comeback and a guarantee in a playoff spot for this young Los Angeles Chargers football team.
It's not young in that there's like all guys in their early 20s because you've got Derwin James and you've got Bosa and you've got Mack on defense. But offensively, it's super young because other than Herbert, they got rid of Allen, they got rid of Williams, they got rid of Eckler. They've got a young offensive line. So they're counting on their quarterback to really be the guy there. And honestly, over the last 3 games, they scored 17 points in all 3. It had been a very conservative offense. There were a lot of pass attempts, but the yards per pass were really low. I mean, the second half of last week's game against Tampa Bay was an embarrassment across the board for both the offense and the defense. They got destroyed. And it looked like more of the same for a lot of this game. And then like the Kansas City game that they lost on the last second field goal, Herbert looked like the guy that you're paying $50 million a year to by making the guys around him better. That is the mark of a great quarterback. And we just have not seen enough of that from him in his career. We've seen great moments. We've seen great throws, but it hasn't translated, Pat, into big wins. I mean, the 2 games he's best known for right now is the blown playoff game against Jacksonville, where they had that huge lead and they lost. And the game they had against Oakland a few years ago, the last week of the season, where if they had tied, both teams would have made the playoffs. And he made all of those insane plays on like 4th down and stuff late in the game to force overtime and then keep the game going. So, he gets a lot of credit for a quarterback that has not won much, because for most of his career, people have made excuses for what's gone on around him, whether it's bad coaching, Brandon Staley, guys getting injured. I think now that he's got Harbaugh there, Pat, it's time for him to start winning some games that really count. So this was a step in the right direction. I think people will be shocked that his record as a quarterback is only 39-38. This put him over 500 tonight, and it's going to get them to the playoffs. And I don't know, they don't really strike. I don't know how you feel about this. They don't. We asked this question about the Tampa Bay game, who was more dangerous, the Bucs or the Chargers? I don't really look at the Chargers as a dangerous team yet. Do you?
Nah, they're not a dangerous team yet, but they're a team that's going to compete. They're going to play tough, that we saw today. But I think they just need a little bit more experience in the big game winning category. Like you said, Justin hasn't really done that throughout his career. He's basically known for, like you said, pretty much throwing up that game against Jacksonville. And that's basically it. He haven't won a playoff game, just breaking 500 with this win today. But yeah, he's going to have to win more games to really, solidify himself or cement himself, in that tier of quarterbacks, especially, the tier of the next generation of quarterbacks. But he has all the intangibles and the ability to do that, but he just haven't shown us that yet. So now with Jim Harbaugh, with a guy who has the experience, a guy who's pretty much, revamped quarterback's career, he has no more excuses.
See, I was actually going to say maybe the opposite. I think he's got all the tangibles, like the measurable things. It's just a matter of him, the psychology of playing the position and not allowing for a mistake to turn into a second mistake, a third mistake, a fourth mistake, to have 1 3 and out, create a situation where the confidence kind of goes for their offense. That's why I said this was his best game. The Broncos defense is awesome. We've given them so much credit all year. This was a legit 34 points. They didn't have short fields. They didn't get takeaways. Nix didn't shoot himself in the foot with interceptions or anything like that, or fumbles. They scored. This was their, I think, highest point output of the entire year, tied with the game they played against Cincinnati. We know how bad Cincinnati's defense is. So that's why I completely tip my cap to them for what they did. The other big winner tonight, Pat, is the Bengals. And I know you've said all year that they're not going to make it, and I think you're still right. But at least now there's a little bit of suspense, because if the Bengals beat the Browns on Sunday, then they play Denver next week. The Bengals have to win out and the Broncos need to lose out, but they play each other in week 17. And then week 18, the Broncos play the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs are still playing for the 1 seed, they could lose both of those games. The Broncos game is in Cincinnati next week, Pat.
Yeah.
So at least we'll have something, because some of these, I thought when the Broncos beat the Colts, it was basically over. They were going to make the playoffs, but it is not with a young team and a rookie quarterback. It's not out of the question that they could lose those final 2 games. I don't think.
No, it's definitely it's not out of the question that that the Denver Broncos can lose the next, drop 2 games out of the next 3. It's very possible. And
if the Steelers win the AFC North and have the division clinched, they might rest their starters against the Bengals in week 18. Could you imagine if the Bengals dude? I mean, who would you rather see in all honesty, I know the Bengals defense is terrible, but if you're, say, Buffalo, would you rather the Broncos or Bengals make the playoffs?
Broncos or the Bengals?
If you're the Bills or the Chiefs or one of these top teams?
The Bengals. I would rather have the Bengals.
You'd rather play them.
Yeah.
Man, even with Burrow, huh? Okay.
Yeah, just because I'm gonna go. I know it'll be a shootout, but Denver defense, man, that'll just, to me, that just makes them unpredictable. In my opinion, I think they're very optimistic on.
You think Denver's defense is more dangerous than the Bengals' offense?
No, I feel like I feel like the Bengals defense is very suspect to go up
Okay.
against the Bills.
So the Bengals defense
Offense.
is so bad that
Right.
that's the worst unit in that. Okay, I got it now. Did you ever practice? Did you ever have a coach tell you about the fair catch field goal that we
Oh yeah.
saw at the end of the first half?
The free
Okay.
kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That was the
something
first
that
time that happened in a game since 1976. I feel like people know the rule, but we never get to
Mhm.
see it. We finally got to see it tonight.
Yeah, we did. And man, Al Michaels was saying that, man. I don't know about that because I felt like every time we had an opportunity to go over that, I feel like that situation happened with the Rams. There was in St. Louis at the time. I cannot remember the situation, but I remember us going over that vividly with Bruce Arians. So like I knew the rule, I knew about the free kick and them having an opportunity to kick the ball off with the kickoff team out there, this, that, and the other. So they really got lucky getting that running to the
Interference call. Yeah.
running to the catcher call. So it put them in great field position to have an opportunity to attempt that. And that was pretty cool to see because they said that was the first time of that play actually being successful since like what 1977 or something like that.
They said 76, but Spencer's saying that he thinks that it happened more recently than that. So we might have to
That's what I'm
really
saying. So when they were saying it
on
on
that.
TV, I'm like, I'm sure I've seen it being attempt before, and I'm
Oh,
sure
it was attempted, he said, not made. So we've seen it, but it just didn't go in
that's what it was
2019.
then. Okay, that's what it was. Okay, I remember going over that scenario, going over that play, and seeing someone actually doing it. So yeah,
Let's get to the games, starting with the Saturday games, and that would be the Texans and Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going to play. He's not even questionable. He's not on the injury report. It's a high ankle sprain. Is this the right call? Pat, I thought high ankle sprains were a month injury. So is this one of those situations where they're trying to make it seem like it was worse than it is? So now we think he's Superman for coming back and playing in this game. I've seen stuff like that happen with Ben Roethlisberger in my career. I'm not shitting you. Where
yeah.
I don't know if it was him or they would make it sound like, oh my God, he could have died. And then he would play the next week and everybody would want to treat him like the world's like toughest man. So I don't know, man. High ankle sprain to me, I thought was going to put him on the shelf for multiple games, not come back and play on a short week.
Man, you know what's crazy about that, Pony, is that I mean, ankle sprains and ankle injuries are not the same as they were, 3-4 years ago. 3-4 years ago, because you got Fred Warner playing on a fractured ankle, something I never heard before. So obviously he's some type of Superman. Then you got, Patrick Mahomes playing with multiple ankle injuries throughout this season, hobbling off the field, getting X-rays after the game, and being questionable on Monday. Then next thing you know, off the injury list by Friday. So the medication and the treatment nowadays is out of this
He did on
world to have.
Tuesday it was still hurting him in that it was not dire for him to play because it wasn't the AFC Championship game on Saturday. So I have no clue what changed here.
Yeah, me either. But at the same time, this is something that Patrick's been dealing with throughout his career. And like I told you before, man, like he's one of those guys that's an ultra competitor. He's a guy that want to be out there. And yes, they're playing for something. They're playing for the number one seed in the AFC. That gives them an opportunity not only to get home field advantage, but to get an extra week and rest up and give them opportunity to go on that quest for three-peat. So it's not shocked that he's off the play, off the injury list, and I'm not shocked that he's playing in this game because, like I said, they're playing for a lot here. They know how significant it is for them to have home field advantage and how hard it is for teams to come there and try to sneak out of the kingdom with a W. So yeah, they're playing for a lot,
I'm a
and like I
total
said, I'm not
scaredy cat.
surprised.
I'm a total scaredy cat. I would not play him.
I know
I
you
think
would.
I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. It's just the worst possible matchup. He's been hit more than any quarterback in the league this year, 66 times.
No.
And you're playing the team that's second in sacks with Houston with Hunter and Anderson up front.
No.
Your left tackle situation is so bad. You're moving Joe Tooney, who's been a guard his entire career, to left tackle, and you're saying, hey, go block Danielle Hunter in this game.
Right.
That scares the bejesus out of me, dude.
Yeah, it scares me too. But at the same time, you have to believe Patrick is going to understand and know how to get himself out of harm's way. I don't know how he does it, but he does it every single time. You know what I mean? So Andy Reid have seen this play, have seen this script, have seen this movie time and time and time again. And he just, quite frankly, have the trust in him to put the game in his hand and understand that he's hurt, but at the same time knowing that he's not gonna go out there and really put himself in harm's way. He's just gonna do enough to obviously win the ball game for his team and also finish his ball game to where he can, get back into the training room Sunday night after the game. This game's Saturday, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Get back in the training room, get an extra day of treatment, and next thing you know, you got 2 more games to finish out the season. So I'm not surprised at all. All right, we got the Steelers and the Ravens. Will Lamar finally have his big game against his arch rival?
I'm answering it no, because I have a very definite meaning or definition of defined meaning of what a big game is. If the Ravens win, but he puts up ho-hum numbers, would you call that a big game?
No.
Because I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Ravens are finally going to beat the Steelers. They've lost 8 of 9 to him. But I don't anticipate he's going to put up big numbers. TJ Watt is going to play in this game. Watt has bedeviled Jackson. He's got 8.5 sacks against him in 5 games. He was a big reason why they shut him down earlier in the year. But I don't have a lot of confidence in the Steelers scoring points, Pat, because George Pickens is out for this game. And with Pickens out the last 2 weeks, Russ has been around 150 passing yards. And I don't think the Steelers can run the ball on Baltimore. So this is going to be one of those classic low-scoring affairs between these two teams. And I think when you've won the coin toss 8 of 9 times, you're bound to lose one, especially when it's the first time ever the Steelers have played Lamar Jackson twice in 1 year. They've never seen him 2 times. He's always been hurt or he's been resting something for the playoffs. So I think close, low-scoring game. And if the Ravens win, I don't think I'm going to come out of this thinking that Lamar has completely exercised all his demons against the Steelers. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to take a lot. Like if he has like a 500-yard game, 5 touchdowns, and I still won't say he kind of, finally overcame his arch rival, but that will be a big game against, Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
I think if he goes 250-2 against them, it's a big game based on how much he struggled against them in his career. I don't even think that's going to happen.
No, that might not happen either. But if he throw the ball, if he throw the ball like he did, who they played last week? The Giants.
The Giants, and his pants were falling down. He was he didn't even care.
If you have a game like that against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's a big game.
Oh my God, yes, the monkey's off his back. He could probably run off the field like Antonio Brown if that happens. I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah, so if he's able to to put up those type numbers, I feel like that's considered having a big game for Lamar. But if he goes out there and throws the ball for 100, 220 yards, 2 tubs, and they squeak out of there with a win, it's just going to be another game, but it's going to be a game that he finally won. You know what I mean? So this is going to be very intriguing to see the Pittsburgh Steelers go up against Lamar Jackson for the second time this year, because like you said as well, this is the first time that this has happened because he's either been hurt or either been resting up for the playoff.
So he can make adjustments to them for the first time.
Exactly. So, and we all know how Lamar is when he do play a team a second go around. So This is going to be very, very intriguing because, like I said, this is the only team that plays him the way that they do, that a defense does Lamar Jackson throughout his career. So it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how he adjusts against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense now with his first time going up against the TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense for the second time this season.
He doesn't have a passer rating over 80 in a game against the Steelers in his career, which is insane. And among his 10 worst games, 4 of them have been against the Steelers. All right, Saints and Packers, Pat. This is Monday night. Kamara's out for the year for New Orleans, so this should be a cakewalk for the Packers. The question is Green Bay Patrick Peterson's NFC playoff sleeper?
Yes. Just because Green Bay is picking up right where they had left off from last year, and there was a team that a lot of teams did not want to play late in the year, and they're proving that again with Jordan Love having more experience than he did last year. Watching the game last week against the Seahawks, Jordan Love played lights out. Defense is continuing to play lights out. Josh Jacobs is a guy that's running out of his mind. No, Saquon Barkley gets a lot of pub and a lot of credit for what he's doing over in with the Philadelphia Eagles, but what Josh Jacobs is doing has been very, very, very refreshing for him and the the Green Bay Packers offense, because this is something that, quite frankly, that they needed as well, this style of running. I know they had Aaron Jones. He's more of a scat back type of guy, but now having a Josh Jacobs, a guy who can still catch the ball out of the backfield, but a guy who also that can inflict pain, a guy that can inflict pressure on defenses as the game gets to wear on. And Jordan Love just continue to flourish as that running game is helping them in the passing later on in the game as well. So, this is going to be a team that is very, very scared. That you're going to be very, very scared to match up against, just because they have all the weaponry to have an opportunity to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. You know, this is a team that plays well on the road. This is a team that is well coached as well.
I'm with you, man. They are my pick. They have shown this year that they can do everything. They're 7th in points scored. They're 8th in points allowed. So they're good on both sides of the ball. They're 4th in rushing yards. So it's not just Jordan Love's arm. LaFleur is somebody who I trust. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. Since Aaron Rodgers left, he's 19-12. So he's proving that he's not just a guy that's a product of having a Hall of Fame quarterback. They played Philly so close that first game of the year in Brazil when Love got injured. They don't have the tiebreaker on Washington, so it's actually possible that they could win maybe out and still be the 7th seed. And if they had to play Philly in the first round, that would be nuts. I don't think the Eagles would look at that as some reward for having such a good year. So I absolutely think they could win multiple playoff games. So we pretty much have the same exact take, which is wild because you know everything about football as an all-pro, and I'm just a dude who's watching games from my couch, and it's like we had the same notes sent to us on what to say about the Packers.
We're good. I mean, I'm doing something good, Pony. All right, we got the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. Jerry Jones says he gives Mike McCarthy high grades this season. Do you think he bring him back?
I think Jerry Jones likes yes men and people that he gets along with. And that'll be a theme that gets brought up again on this podcast. We bring up the Jets a little bit later here and everything that's going on with them. I think that it's highly unpredictable with Jones. They are having a bad year, but here's how I think he could justify McCarthy. Offensively, since Dak has went out, in their 3 wins, they're scoring 30 points per game. They're 3-3 without Dak. So with Cooper Rush, they've played 500 ball. They went to Washington and won. They probably should have beaten Cincinnati if not for that fluke special teams play. And I think he's just, Belichick's off to college. Not that he was going to hire him anyways, but I think the barometer for what Jerry Jones considers success is different from what his fans think is success. And if he likes, I don't know what the bottom line looks like, the fan support they've received this year, if he thinks they're trending in the right direction, who knows? It's all subjective to him. I don't think it's black and white. You win a playoff game, you keep your job. You don't, you're fired. He kept Jason Garrett for 9 years, Pat.
Yeah.
So he said twice now on the record, he said it wouldn't be crazy for me to give Mike McCarthy an extension. And now he's saying this week that he thinks the guy's doing a good job. Right now, I think he's going to bring him back. Gun to my head. I think McCarthy's going to get an extension there. You?
Yeah, hearing how Jerry is kind of backing Mike McCarthy in this whole situation right now, I think he brings him back because going back to the 49ers question we had maybe about 3 weeks ago about there was rumors out there that the 49ers was possibly in trade talks of Kyle Shanahan.
And Aikman brought that up on Monday Night Football this week,
right.
By the way.
And again, if you're in trade talks, like who out there you believe is going to be able to replace Kyle Shanahan and be able to have the success that he had, and however long he in his tenure being a head coach. Same thing with Mike McCarthy. Like who out there you believe that's going to have, the same, the same success or the same credibility that Mike McCarthy has. Like we all talked about, I don't think he's a great coach, but I feel like he's a solid and a good coach that can win football game, due to the right circumstances with his football team, so
I think your point this year has been you blame the GM, you blame the guy that bought the groceries, not the cook.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, the cook definitely is not to blame because he had no seasoning. You know what I mean? So you can't blame the cook when you don't have no salt, no pepper, no seasoning, all none of that. At his availability to be able to put on the food. So I do feel like Jerry's going to bring him back. Due to the circumstances, to the team, how the team was built. I think he gets another chance, gets an extension. If he doesn't do anything next year, I think that's when he gets fired.
All right, I'm very interested to get your reaction to this next one. 49ers and Dolphins. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, reporting this week that Brock Purdy is seeking $60 million per year. What would you do, Pat?
Let him see if he can get it somewhere else. If I'm John Lynch, if I'm the 49ers GM, I don't think he's worth that, but I'm sure he's going to be like Trevor Lawrence is not worth that. Who's another quarterback that's getting a big bank? Tua is not worth that. He haven't won any playoff games. I took my team to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So it's just the market right now. But if I'm the 49ers, oh man, you got to go see if you can get that somewhere else. I'm not giving you $60 million. But again, I'm not the GM, so that's what I would do. And I still don't see
what would be the number that you would be comfortable with? Because I have one.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable playing Brock 45.
Dude, that's exactly what I have written down. Yeah. I said I would give him the Kirk Cousins deal. I would give him 4 years, $180 million, because as big as that number sounds to people, casual people, that's what average quarterbacks in the NFL get paid now.
Because
he's 10th in QBR, he's 15th in passer rating. He's been to a Super Bowl. When he's around good players, we've seen him play well. Like, that's probably where he is. So I would give him that. If he doesn't want it, well, then guess what, Pat? You just mentioned it with Kyle Shanahan. You have a coach who elevates the play of quarterbacks. So why would you overpay for one when you have a coach who makes quarterbacks better?
Yeah. Because then I also think about the first year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first year franchise tag for the quarterback is 41. Second year is 55. So there's no way I'm giving him $60 million. And it's no way I see the San Francisco 49ers giving him $60 million.
Now, Spencer brought something up that's interesting off the air with this. If Kirk Cousins gets released in Atlanta like Russell Wilson did by Denver, Atlanta's on the hook for the money. Do you think San Francisco could sign Cousins and have the same thing the Steelers did and have Atlanta pay all that money and basically have Kirk Cousins for $1 million and go with Kirk as their starting quarterback for the next year or two and not Brock?
That'd be interesting, but I don't see that happening.
Because Spencer says that he's heard around the grapevine that Shanahan loves Kirk Cousins.
I know that's his guy. They was together in Atlanta, not Atlanta, in Washington.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that was also like 10 years ago now, or not that long ago. But yeah, the dude's 36 and has
that sounds about right. It's close to about 10 years ago. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, I wouldn't pay him that $60 million. Not me. Some people are picking Philly to go to the Super Bowl. Do you agree?
And they're doing it based on what happened last week, because the game before that against Carolina, people were freaking out. And I said my antenna was up after what happened. And then you came back after hearing all the fallout there and said, ooh, this does have the potential to get ugly. And then to their credit, they played a perfect game against the Steelers. But that is one game. And the one thing I'll say about it that no one has talked about is that the Steelers did take Saquon Barkley out of that game. He averaged 3.4 yards per carry. The Steelers defensively against the run, that's going to keep Saquon Barkley from breaking Eric Dickerson's record, and it might keep him from getting to 2,000 yards. And I'm bringing it up because I do think there are other defenses that can follow that blueprint and make the Eagles a pass-first team. I think Minnesota can do it. I think Green Bay might be able to do it if they play him again. And so Hurts was great against the Steelers, and everything was on point with Brown and Smith. They both went over 100 yards receiving. But I don't think that that's a guarantee. Like, to me, I think Hurts is a very good quarterback. I don't think he's great. I think he's probably like in the next tier or the second tier below that. But a lot of that has to do with how good of a runner he is, Pat. He's got 14 rushing touchdowns. So if you can somehow limit Barkley and turn him into a guy that throws it 30 times in a game, I think one of those two teams I mentioned can beat them. So like the reaction to the game last week was the Eagles look like they're a slam dunk to make the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say that right now. Are you?
No, I don't think they are a slam dunk team to make it to the Super Bowl, but they look like the team that got the most promise, though, to make it to the Super Bowl.
There's no doubt about it.
I'd say that just because their style of play on defense and the style of play that they play on offense. I know you said that the Pittsburgh Steelers took Saquon Barkley out of that game last week, and that they did. But that you saw Jalen emerge in the rushing game, and that's something that we haven't really seen all year. We've seen that last year, and I believe that's something that kind of hindered their team success later on in the year last year. But now
I would try to take him away, and then if Hurts beats you with his arm, then you live with that. And you say, all right, fine. If that's how we're going to lose, that's how we're going to lose these games. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. But I feel like the way that the team is built, it's going to be tough living on that edge as well, just because his ability to run the football out of the play, out of the RPO, the play action, and the quarterback design runs that they have. So therefore, you still got to have a guy accounted for inside the box, and then you leaving Brown and Smith one-on-one on the outside with those easier throws, the back shoulder phase, and those 50-50 balls, to where he don't have to really read coverages and go through his progressions and things like that. So I think it's just going to make this team that much more dangerous, to be quite honest with you, seeing what Jalen was able to do with his legs last week when Saquon Barkley was pretty much taken out of the ball game.
My bold prediction is that they're going to lose to Washington, and the reaction is going to be that the sky is falling there again on Monday.
I mean, that's Philly. Yeah, that's normal.
Patriots Bills. Now, I'm bringing this up because this game is supposed to be a blowout, and Buffalo is coming off that great win against Detroit. But whenever I think about New England, I still think about Belichick. And the one thing Belichick was great at was like game management stuff, clock management. He was very, very adept at those things.
Mm-hmm.
Bills fans think Sean McDermott stinks at that part of the coaching game. Like that, think that's where his greatest shortcoming or weakness is as a coach, his in-game coaching decisions. Do you think that that is a legitimate concern for a team that otherwise, Pat, looks like they are geared up to go on a long playoff run?
100%. Man, we've seen it time and time again. You know, like you said, that is the one area that I feel like the Buffalo Bills struggle, especially late in the game or when it comes down to calling timeouts or not even having enough timeouts towards the tail end of a ball game. Questionable play calling at the end of ball game, especially in those big games. You know, so he has done a great job.
Pretty big concern to have, man.
Say it again.
That's a pretty big concern to have. What you're
It
saying.
is. It is, but I will say, just like we had a pretty big concern about Josh Allen, you know, turning the ball over, he still only had 5 interceptions this year, and I believe that the clock management of the Bills have definitely improved substantially since last year. You know, I can see that they have been making strides in, you know, clock management towards the end of the half, clock management towards the end of games, and 4-minute offense as well. You know, so you can see that those guys that's been something that they've been working extremely hard on in the offseason. So this season, I haven't seen any questions with clock management, but playoff time is totally different. So we'll see if any of those bones start to come out the shadow out of the closet once the playoff starts.
I'm going to disagree with you. I feel like 2 out of their 3 losses, McDermott's fingerprints are on. The game they lost at Baltimore, they got blown out. I don't think there was anything he could have done from an in-game strategy decision to make that one any better. The Houston game, they were throwing the ball deep downfield out of their own end zone. They didn't take any time off the clock. They punted it.
Oh, yeah. That was a bad one. I remember that early on in the year.
They lost. That game at worst should have gone to overtime. And then I thought one of Brady's better broadcasting moments so far was 2 weeks ago when they're down near the goal line against the Rams. And they quarterback sneaked it, and it forced them to use a timeout. And then they weren't going to have enough time to get the ball back after that. If they had thrown it and got it, they would have had the 3 timeouts to get the ball back. So, I mean, I haven't seen anything as bad as the 13-second gaffe by McDermott in the playoff game against Kansas City. But, dude, I don't think he's got it out of his system. And if I were a player on that team, that would be on the back of my mind. Like, is this dude going to F us in a big spot? Are we going to do our jobs and he's going to let us down with something dumb in one of these big games? He looks tense. He looks nervous on the sideline in those moments, Pat. I would feel that as a player. He looks like he's about to, crap himself in some of these situations.
He does look a little nervous on TV. Like, what do I do? He's looking like the guy on Jeopardy, or I'm trying to think of that show where you can phone in a friend. Can't think of the damn name of that show. Say it again.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You could phone in. Back in the day,
yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. That's how Sean McDermott looked on the sideline, like he's biting his nails, looking for the perfect play call or someone to kind of help him out with this situation. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they answer this call here in the playoffs, because like I said, clock management has been something that has hunt this team, in the past. So hopefully, that is something that don't hold them back from possibly, reaching their first Super Bowl in God knows how long, about 30 years. Vikings Seahawks, Geno Smith versus Sam Darnold. What makes these quarterback reclamation project work?
What makes it work is I think they go from places that have a history of ruining good young quarterbacks or potentially good young quarterbacks because there's disarray, there's meddling from owners, there's coordinator changes, there's things like that. And these guys get thrust into those situations before they're ready. They put up bad numbers. The book gets out on them that they're not cut out to be starting quarterbacks. Then they bounce around as journeymen before they get in with the right coaching or with the right weapons around them. Geno Smith, it was more about the personnel. He had DK Metcalf, he had Lockett, he had guys he could throw the ball to. The offensive line protected him well enough. With Darnold, I think it's more about now they've got great weapons there, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching he's getting. Shanahan last year getting a year to watch, and then now this year with O'Connell and being able to throw the ball to Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson now that he's healthy. And it just makes me wonder, Pat, like, how many more guys are there like this? Because this has now happened. Baker Mayfield had a good career in Cleveland. He never played the way that he has in Tampa Bay, put up huge numbers, and Chris Godwin's been hurt for most of the year. He's got over 30 touchdown passes. Darnold's resuscitated his career. Geno Smith clearly did that after he lost his job in New York and got punched out by a teammate. I wonder about two guys now who could be the next Darnold or the next Geno Smith. Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson. When guys get given up on at 24 or 25 years old and they were drafted in the top 10, so the raw skills are there, I'm always going to be curious if they're put in a better situation, how they're going to play. For example, if the Rams decided to bring Daniel Jones there next year, back up Matthew Stafford for a year, and then take over when Stafford retired, I think he might do well in the Sean McVay offense. I think it would be interesting if something were to happen to Bo Nix and Zach Wilson were to go in Denver, how he would do with Sean Payton as his coach for a few games, given, where he was before with the Jets. So that's what I think it comes down to, man. Like, I don't know if those guys are good. I don't know if they're good. They've looked bad. Daniel Jones won a playoff game. But maybe in the right situation, those guys' careers would bounce back, like we've seen with Darnold and Geno, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, with what Geno and Sam has been able to do, with Geno leading back to last year and Sam, what he's able to do this year, both of those guys always had, the quarterback intangibles, as far as both of those guys got very strong arms. Got really solid accuracy, and it just came down to them really getting married up to the perfect play caller, a guy that sees the field to their strengths. We all know Geno Smith has a big arm, can throw the ball all over the yard, can pretty much, go through his progressions. Sam is a guy that's a little bit different. He's a guy that throws the ball better off of play action motions. He's a guy that throws the ball a little bit better in between the numbers. You know what I mean? But at the same time, those guys got married up with play callers that understood their strengths and just started to exploit those. And that's the thing, when you get drafted early, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have stable coaching. Right? You're going to have a coach that's basically probably on his first year or on his way out. But that's the reason why the team got drafted that high. So when that's why it's very, very important. I believe teams are starting to see that now. When they're drafting these quarterbacks, we want to have a play caller in place, or someone that's in place that's going to be able to help our young quarterback progress. So now we're not starting, behind the 8 ball on trying to help them or make them learn something that they're not even totally used to, So I think that's why we're starting to see now teams that are going into the draft and drafting quarterbacks. We want to match them up with the play caller to at least that's calling some of the plays that they're similar to what they were running back in college, or with the team that's previous that they're with, or you have a great offensive coordinator or a guru of an offensive minded coach that's going to be able to exploit explore whatever, intangibles that you have to make you better in whatever area that it is.
Rams, Jets. Aaron Rodgers is getting very upset with criticism of his play and behavior. Is it justified?
Yeah, man. I mean, it is what it is. We see the way that you're calling teammates out. We see the way that you point finger at everyone else. I will say the last couple of weeks, it seemed like he has been taking more of the blame, or at least some of the blame, on some of the things that's been going wrong with the football team. But at the end of the day, it starts with him, and you can't. And for me, you can't be, in front of the camera after a loss, talking about what other people have done in the game. I was always taught that, you own up to whatever it is going on, with the game. But let's digest the game first. Let's watch the tape first before you go out, to point the finger or say this guy didn't do his job, or that guy didn't do his job, or this, that, and the other. Let's digest this film first. Then you'll be able to give, your thoughts, because there's a lot of emotions that go through your mind, after a loss, or after a game, and things like that. So I just feel like, the way, the world have been seeing him after games, and, how he, to me, being a quarterback, have, treated his teammates in the media. Yeah, I don't think that's never the way to go. And you put that on tape, not me.
So his big issue seems to be that he thinks he gets unfairly criticized because people are looking to attack him, not for his play, but for his personal life decisions. And they're using critiques of his play to really tear down what he represents outside of football, like the stance he took on vaccines, some of the things he said about like his political interests, where he almost ran for vice president with Kennedy. Like it's very obvious to me that he thinks that people just use his football struggles this year, failures, as a way to bash him for the person that he's become. And I do think that there's some truth to that. But here's my take on it. When you make your personal life so public, when you do it, not like a tabloid, not somebody that's like an investigative journalist who's prying into your life, when you're making effing documentaries about yourself, going on retreats and putting face paint on and bullshit like that, and you're going on McAfee's show and you're talking about your conspiracy theories and your decisions on alternative medicine and why that's better, and fluoride should be taken out of water and stuff like that. Like, when you're doing that and you're trying to get that out there, you can't, I think it's very difficult then for people just to put your play in a vacuum or isolate on it and only, judge you for that. So like, I don't really have, I guess what I'm saying here is, Pat, is I don't really have a lot of empathy that that's how it's gone. Like, the comparison I made on other shows is like, I feel like people in the media like Lamar Jackson because they know he's like a good dude, and he's had zero off the field issues or anything like that. He's like not as an individual or as a person, he's not a controversial guy. His play sometimes is, but he's not a controversial person. And I think sometimes people in national media pull punches or are very slow to criticize him because they like him, because like they actually like want the guy to succeed. And I think the opposite has happened with Rodgers. Like, I do think that people root for him to fail now because of the way he's conducted himself.
Yeah.
But again, that's on him.
100%. 100%.
You can't expect when you're that bombastic about your own life decisions and stuff. You can't just expect people to kiss your feet because you've won 4 MVP awards when you're not playing well. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, that's people's job, is to critique your play. You know what I mean? So Like you don't get a pass or get any different treatment. If someone asked a question about someone play and they're paid to give their opinion about it, that's what they're going to do. And at the same time, what I see from his interviews and post game interviews and things like that just seemed very selfish on how he handled some of the question, and that's just my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just don't. I don't ever see some of the comments he make after a game sitting well with some of his teammates. I know that they may have a young teammate, and a lot of guys may respect Aaron Rodgers, and I respect Aaron Rodgers. I love what he's done for the league. One of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played the game. But I guarantee you, there's been talks in small groups in the locker room like, "Hey man, you're right." A-Rod said, "Man, how you feel
Yeah.
about it?" I guarantee it 100%. All right, moving on. We got the Lions and the Bears. Dan Campbell goes viral for his reaction to the Bills' loss. Did you like it?
I didn't like it. I loved it. He went on a sports talk station, a big juggernaut station in Detroit, which airs Lions games. They have a great relationship with him. And he said, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to them, losing this game. And he said, you forget what it's like, when you're eating filet every week. You forget what it was like when you had nothing and you're eating effing molded bread and it
Yeah.
gave you everything you needed. You got to get punched in the mouth to appreciate things.
Yep.
And I love that. And I get there's a little bit of when the Eagles in 2017 lost Carson Wentz
Mhm.
late in the year, and there was a thought like, I don't care what their record is or seed is, they can't win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
I'm getting the same vibe here with them because of their defensive injuries.
Yeah.
Like people are ready to just throw in the towel on them. I do think, like the Eagles that year, they're going to need to get the number 1 seed. I think they need the bye, they need the rest, and I think they need the games in Detroit. I don't think you want Jared Goff outside in Philadelphia in
Nah.
15-degree weather. But
Nope.
with this guy leading the way that he is, if they get home playoff games, I still think they can absolutely go to the Super Bowl, Pat. I'm not giving up on them yet because of stuff like this. It's easy to believe that Dan Campbell can rally the troops.
Yeah. It's easy to believe that.
But you're not believing it because you think the injuries have caught up to him.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that because I don't think they're going to get the number 1 seed. I think that's
Damn.
going to slip away from them. I believe Minnesota's going to end up beating them here coming up. Did they play Philly already?
They got to play the Niners after the Bears.
So that's who it is. So I think the Niners will have a strong opportunity of beating them. I know their team is a little leaky right now, but the defense that the injuries that the Detroit Lions have suffered on the defensive side of the ball, man, that's going to be a tough bullet for them to bite, man. In my opinion, I just feel it. I just believe that they're just getting thinner and thinner in the interior of their defense. We know you're going to have to be able to stop the run because teams are going to want to oppose their will, especially in the playoffs. Guys in the back end are dropping like flies. Obviously, you're going to need to stop these pass catchers that's going to be in the playoffs because you're going to have, at least 3 of the top 10 pass catchers in the playoffs. So I just
They need to
believe
call
that,
you. Is what they need to do. They need to call Pat Peterson right now.
Yeah, and my number haven't changed since I have played my last game. So, I just believe those injuries, man, is really, really have a mountain up to a point that there's no turning back. I mean, obviously they are where they are, but in this time of the year, I believe this is where the injuries are really, really going to catch up with them. So, I think they are going to slip away. The number 1 seed is going to slip. Because wait, is Philly number 1 or are they tied right now?
No,
Who's the number 1 seed?
Detroit's the number 1 seed right now.
So I believe the number 1 seed is going to slip away from Detroit. So therefore, they're going to have to play on the road. And like you said, I do not want to see. I'd rather not have Jared Goff outside in the playoff, in the elements, in January, in a playoff game on the road. I'd rather have him in Ford Stadium. And is really looking like that is starting to slip away with the last couple games. of the season.
Yeah.
Right in the grasp of their hands. So we'll see.
Jaguars and Raiders. I dubbed this one the Travis Hunter Bowl. Do you believe, Pat, he can play both ways in the NFL?
Yes, I believe he can play both ways. It's just going to come down to how much he can play both ways.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't. If he goes in as a DB, I can see him playing, 25, 30%, 30, not, yeah, I can see him playing maybe 15 to 30 snaps on offense.
Is that the right way to do it? Make him a corner and then make him a part-time offensive player?
I believe so. Just because, man, on the offensive side of the ball, you need just so much to go your way. You got to be paired up with a solid quarterback. You got to have an offensive coordinator that's creative enough to get you the football. You got to have at least a solid offensive line that's going to protect for the quarterback to get you the football. I just feel like it's just so many pillars that have to be aligned for him to be a successful receiver. Not saying that he can't do it. I just feel like it will be.
What do you think he's better at?
I think he's better at DB.
Okay.
Yeah, I really love his ball skills and what he's able to do and anticipating routes. And that's honestly, man, you can ask any other great DB. Most great DBs played receiver, in high school and little league or whatever, because you can tell the way they track the football. You can tell the way, their return skills, when they have the football in their hands. So, with him being on the offensive side of the ball, it's just obviously he's really good at it. But if you could take those skill sets as a defensive back, those are something that's very rare to see in a defensive back, a guy that can turn into a receiver when the quarterback is throwing the ball to the receiver. You know what I mean? So I love the ability for him to take the ball away from opposing teams and becoming a receiver when his back is towards a quarterback. So that's my take, but he's damn good at both of them, man. Like what I saw, he's number 4 at receive. He was number 4 rated receiver and a number 8 rated defensive back. So the kid's special.
So Champ Bailey played receiver and corner at Georgia. That's like the last great player I remember who was good at both. But Bailey was not this good of a receiver. The kid won the Biletnikoff Award.
Yeah,
he was the best wide receiver in college football this year, and obviously we know he won the Heisman too because he was doing. He's basically the Shohei Ohtani of football, where he's just doing things that we have not seen in 60, 70 years. My rebuttal to you is, and the analogy I'll make or the comparison I'll make is with your old teammate Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray might have been a better baseball player than a football player, but the money, the quarterback money, was just so good or too good to say no to. Eventually, if you're the top 1% of baseball, you could get a Juan Soto contract. Right. But if you don't, you've got to ride buses in the minor leagues and whatnot. The earnings potential is not as good as it is if you're, we just said average quarterback's making $45 million a year now. Top wide receivers make more than top corners. I don't know why that is, by the way. I mean, you'd have a better answer for that.
I don't.
Right? I mean, it seems to me like great wide receivers kind of grow on trees in college now more than great corners do. But for whatever reason, the way the NFL values them, Justin Jefferson's getting $50 million or getting $35 million a year, and the top corner's making what, 20, 25?
Yeah.
So that's what I would think about, man, especially if I felt like I was a better wide receiver or just as good.
And that's why I think he'll go in as a receiver, though, because where the needle is, like you just alluded to, the pay scale as far as the receiver and the cornerback. But if it was me, I would want to see him go in as a corner, but I think he'll go in as a receiver. All right, we got the Browns. We got the Browns-Bengals. Browns make another quarterback change. Will Watson be their guy in 2025?
Pat, the cap hit if they cut him is $118 million.
Yeah, of course he's their guy.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
though. Wait, when you say, of course, he's their guy, how do you do that when the fans booed or cheered when he got injured? Like,
Fans ain't paying the bills. I mean, I'm sorry. Fans are paying the bills. Fans are paying the bills, but they also that 100. What? How much you said the cap was? 108.
118.
Yeah, hey, no, I don't see no franchise taking that hit ever.
But
That's not good business. So absolutely, he's their guy.
I mean, I know he's under contract and it's all guaranteed.
Yep, he's
But
their guy.
if I were him, I wouldn't want to be back there either.
I
Why
mean,
would
he
you
ain't got
want
no
to
choice.
go?
Who gonna pick up the
I mean,
contract?
I know that no one's going to
They
trade
ain't
for
gonna
him.
cut him. Like, absolutely, he's their guy.
I mean, he was already in a situation. He was already in a situation in Houston where they basically had him stay away from the team and paid him.
Yeah,
You
they'll
don't think
probably
that
do
can
the
happen
same thing
again?
here. I mean, they can probably do that, but they're not cutting him. No, that's not happening.
Do you think he'll be their week 1 starter?
If he's healthy enough, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Man, they ain't got nowhere else to look to but hope and pray that these last 2 years end up paying out for all that guaranteed money that they gave him.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. I think he'll be on an inactive list. I think he'll be on their team for the reasons you stated. I don't think he'll be, not just because of the injury. I don't think they want him around the team because of how toxic it is again. I think Justin Fields is going to be the Browns' week 1 starting quarterback in 2025.
Justin Fields. That's a hell of a prediction.
Speaking of quarterback changes, Kirk Cousins out, Michael Penix Jr. in. I feel like I've asked you, are they going to make a change? Are they going to make a change for like the last 10 podcasts? Well, now they did. They pulled the plug on your old quarterback. Your thoughts?
It was about time.
Really?
Yeah, just because, man, it didn't get better, especially going into the Raiders game. It didn't get better. We saw the same mistakes, the same.
But they won.
I know, but it wasn't convincing enough. Like I wanted to see Kirk have one of those Tampa Bay Buccaneers type games, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, and it still seemed like it was a struggle for him, to pass the football last week. I don't know if it's the injury that's weighing on him, because I said this as well all week. The ball doesn't come out the same. Like it doesn't have the same pop that it had when he was in Minnesota. It just looked like he's forcing the ball or pushing the ball each and every time that he's stepping back and throwing, especially those deep outs. It just looked like he's in grimacing pain every single time he has to wind up and throw that ball out towards the sideline. So I don't know if he's 100% healthy. And like you said, he hasn't forgotten how to play the quarterback position. I just think his body needs to heal up a little bit more to give him the ability to really go out there and showcase who Kirk Cousins really is, because he can throw the football. It just seemed like his mechanics and his strength is just not all the way there just yet.
I would have given him one more game. The Giants just gave up 5 touchdowns to Lamar.
And that's why it's perfect to have Penix going there right now, because they still have an opportunity in the playoffs.
I knew you were going to say that. But then if they lose it, they blew this golden opportunity because they started a rookie. I mean, you brought up the Tampa Bay games. He had a 5-game stretch where he had 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
I know.
This year, not last year, not before the Achilles. This year, he was doing it. Yeah. So what the hell happened in the last month?
I don't know.
I would have just given him a game against a weak opponent to try to get his confidence back. And if it didn't work, then I think I would.
He got that last week against
the Raiders.
Yeah, and let me see what Kirk number was last week.
He did nothing. The numbers are embarrassing.
My point exactly. So it wasn't convincing enough to be like, all right, let's give him another week. Nah, this all right. We saw what we saw with Kirk against the Raiders. It didn't improve. Let's see what this young pup can do against a lesser opponent now. Hold on, let me see. Here we go. Boom. Kirk Cousins. Yeah, he was 11 for 17, 112 yards. Yeah, man.
Dude, he's got 1 touchdown and 9 picks in his last 5 games. It's horrible.
That's what I'm saying.
But I would have given him.
Saying.
You gave him $180 million. I would have given him a little bit more rope. That's all.
Yeah, that's they fault too for.
Cardinals, Panthers, Titans, Colts. Anything on these 2 games?
Cardinals, Panthers. Cardinals need this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. They're traveling east though. It's always tough for the Arizona Cardinals to take to pack up their bags and take their game out on the East Coast. So it's going to be a challenging game.
Is that really? So that's really a thing, because that's something fans say, and they just throw that out there. That's really, as a guy that played there for a long time, that really is legitimately a thing in your opinion. That's fascinating to me.
Pony, I think we want maybe 3 East Coast games. When I was in Arizona, I can tell you the 3 that we want too. The Giants twice. Beat the Giants twice. And I want to say Tampa Bay.
The whole time.
My whole time in Arizona.
Is it the body clock where, like, when you play a 1 o'clock game and you're used to 10 a.m., like it feels like
it's definitely the time change for sure. Especially if you don't go out there. Well, it can hurt you either way. If you go out there on a 2-day trip, then you out there all day Saturday lingering around, and your body kind of like for the most part. And then when you get there on a Saturday and you're on a 3-hour or 2-hour time zone time difference, then you wake up the next day kind of sluggish, so it's to each your own, man. It's kind of like you just got to have your mind prepared and ready for that you're going to feel like shit at some point on that trip. So you got to muscle through it, but it is a real thing though. It is.
Well, speaking of that, did you hear Kyler Murray? They said he was getting all defensive this week, and he said, yeah, I don't care about playing in cold weather. Cold weather doesn't bother me. And then he stopped and he said, well, what's the temperature supposed to be like in Charlotte this week? And I think they said like 28 degrees. And he goes, oh, shit.
Yeah, that's gonna be cold for them for sure, because they're not used to playing in that type of weather.
I thought that was good. And then Tennessee, Indy, Mason Rudolph goes back in. What a horrible season it's been for the Titans, and they've gone back and forth with Will Levis. But frankly, I mean, the dude has been probably responsible for, I would say, of the worst, most irresponsible plays by a quarterback this year. Will Levis, Jameis Winston, and Jordan Love until recently are the 3 guys that have just done insane things with the ball. And it was only a matter because he doesn't have – Jameis can actually make up for it with crazy plays positively. And Love has just, done a great job of eliminating that aspect of his game. And Levis never got to that point, so they had to do it.
Yeah, I ain't got nothing on that game because that's – yeah, I don't even know what to say. Colts, they're not going anywhere. Tennessee's not going anywhere
this year to make them feel like he's their guy for 2025 is really what it boils down to for him.
Yeah.
All right, Pat, good stuff. Thanks to Spencer Ray, our producer. We'll talk to you Sunday night after the Bucks and Cowboys. Subscribe, rate, review. It's First and Pod.
Peace.